Yes, my name is Kenneth Loch. Just want to get into what I'm calling genius of geniuses. I think it'd be good for me to do this. The idea that I'm not sure if there's anybody who's been referred to as such. Say so. I'm claiming actually maybe be the genius of geniuses, or at least come in that like say. So I have a witness of reaching, say, genius, and then the idea that how I went about doing that, and how I come in, say, due season. Who I would be is, say, the first true genius, say, and the idea is that we've had this title, say, and people have referred to people to be one, but it turns out that, let's see, they weren't, say, the genius. And the idea that without the understanding of, say, what a genius is, it has made it possible for people to, make reference to people to be geniuses, and nobody really could say that they were wrong, say, right or wrong. Um, let's see. Let me get back to that due season. Turns out my genius, say, is recognized through the fine arts, ultimately through the philosophy of aesthetics. So the idea that genius is actually has historically been kind of in relation to the philosophy of aesthetics. The idea that the philosophers were actually philosophizing of the likes of a genius. So the likes of, say, Immanuel Kant. He spent a little time philosophizing, and I'd have to give him credit because he actually helped me into coming into my self-realization, say. So I have to give him credit for what he was able to, say, discover, realize, understand, and write it down. And then I read it, and again, genius, philosophy of aesthetics, and then ultimately what they're philosophizing through is through the fine arts, the idea of truth and beauty, say. And let's see, and then back to the due season, who I represent. I'm claiming to be the last of the avant-garde painters of the abstract art movement of the 20th century. So me being the last, and then the idea of how am I the last, or what is that? Ultimately, what I was able to do is I reached, say, the Enlightenment. So the idea of the nature of a genius, and then nature of an enlightenment, and the idea that the genius witnesses an enlightenment, and then ultimately just say a Renaissance genius would equate to someone who would bring um, us into a Renaissance and then the age of enlightenment. So the idea that I'm actually here claiming to be the genius who's going to bring us into an age of enlightenment, and the idea that to do that you have to have a reference to, say, an enlightenment, and actually through the fine art of painting, in particular abstract painting. Ultimately, what I was able to get to is the understanding of how we go, ultimately through painting, we go beyond the object altogether. So the likes of, say, the painter Kandinsky, he was kind of clued in on the nature of that. He actually coined the term non-objective painting or non-objective art. So going beyond the object, non-object. So, and then with that, we can actually, going beyond the object, we can go into like kind of say meta object or meta physics, and then the nature of, say, spiritual or spirituality. Um, and who I represent is someone who knows, knows and does. So the idea of knowing and doing, and then the idea of me being able to know, um, become aware of all this, say, and then be able to do it. And I was able to do it through painting, and then the idea is that I come after the likes of, say, Jackson Pollock. So the idea to understand his work, as well as the likes of, say, a Mark Rothko. I mean, there's probably a ton, say, of painters that I can make reference to, and I can make reference to painters and haven't actually given them credit for being on that wave of avant-garde, the cutting edge, and it led up to myself. Let's see, so right there, who I'm figuring I am is, again, it's actually the primary genius. And again, historically, it's been recognized through the philosophy of aesthetics and through the fine arts, and then the idea of me coming in, again, in due season through the 20th century to bring us into a renaissance for the 21st century. Now, the idea is that it turns out that I also make claim of being the genius of athletics, say, athlete, genius athlete, and how I was able to come into that, to reach that point of doing, say, and then knowing, mind-body connection. It's based on the idea that through the means of tennis, I was able to develop myself to where I fully developed my one arm, and in relation to the fundamentals, there's fundamentals when it comes to tennis and the stroke production, say. And I got involved with teaching, and then eventually I got to a point where I was like, what now? What? I got to a dead end with my one arm, and I kind of challenged myself to develop my other arm, and then with that, then it just it opened up it's kind of a can of worms for me. The idea that it's kind of interesting to me being a teacher, say, and then I was my own teacher and then also my own student. I ultimately knew what I need to accomplish with my one arm, and then I put my other arm on course, say, to ultimately to, in a sense, mirror. And then let's see, so and then I realized the nature of, say, that mind-body connection in relation to, say, a complete exercise, complete composition, and then complete knowledge, complete composition, and then and then also the bringing in the metaphysical, the spiritual. It's actually based on a balance, and who I represent, kind of here now, in a sense, of an eternal sense, which is kind of was here at the beginning of time, will be here till the end of time, type of thing. I'm kind of living eternally, say, or I'm living in a state of completeness, wholeness, with say, my in a sense of my daily practice that I have developed, and mind body, and then the idea is that the mind body, that knowing and doing, the idea that completeness, then the nature of the spiritual, that balance. And then the idea is that I'm here to say that if a person's not, say, ambidextrous, they don't have a relationship which is based on that, then ultimately they don't have a, say, a spiritual relationship, say, or metaphysical relationship. They would be out of balance. And then the nature of, say, enlightenment and versus not enlightenment, say, somebody who's not enlightened, well, they will not be aware possibly of the fact that they're not enlightened. And I'm actually here to inform them of the fact that the connection between becoming enlightened and also becoming ambidextrous, and the idea is how that would require, say, discipline, and also require, say, myself to actually teach them and put them on course so they can actually reach, say, their highest potential. And then I haven't mentioned the idea that interdisciplinary, I'm actually the genius, the idea that I'm here to bring us into a renaissance, and this renaissance is I'm going to reform education into this perspective, and then I am the say the living example of somebody who is interdisciplinary kind of thing. And then in this we come into say the eternal say family. We all become relative to say the standard, and the standard for education would be based on a student learning, becoming diversified in all the fine art forms, and then the idea of they would become, say, conscious and aware of, say, the mind-body connection, and the idea of how essential that would be for their, say, mental health and physical health, and that connection. And then the idea is ultimately the separation. It turns out that right now, say, athletes and say tennis players don't have that connection, and which is causing them to be mentally not healthy, and then also physically not healthy. And just a way to understand that is that they're just developing one arm, and the idea they're playing a game, and they take they're taking that game a little too serious, when in fact they should be taking the exercise and becoming ambidextrous serious. Okay, let me see. Let me get back to the idea of geniuses, and the idea that actually biblically talks about at the end of the age, God will raise up teachers of teachers, say, healer of healers. The idea of how the nature of this completeness, and the idea is who I'm figuring I am is somebody who is, again, comes in due season, who actually was able to come into this completeness that I'm actually here defining and sharing freely. Anything else? So the idea is that I can actually teach people now, students, how to become a genius, and that would be actually through this interdisciplinary educational, say, system, where all students would become relatively geniuses. And then the question is how much so, say. And yeah, let me just wrap it up there. I just want to put this down. Hope you got something from it. Thank you.